Okay, and here we are again with another tack match, this time between fwwwwwibib and NohatCoder. This is going to be probably the clincher of the tournament. We're going to see some high quality play, at least I'm guessing. We see right out of the gate adjacent corners, mirrored play, the standard opening for these top tier players. Now we'll see if we get some, yep, there's the deviation. I'm guessing a capstone at C2, maybe not, but they are off quickly. NohatCoder's not letting this get away from him again. He wants to make sure he uses that increment at the beginning to really build up his time so he doesn't run out later on. All right, we see white building across here. Right now, I'm liking the position from black. It's pretty good. I think the first capstone placement is really going to be something to think about here because black capstone at B5 is great. White capstone at C2 is great. So we're seeing a lot. We also see some commentary off to the side in the chat with Rabbit Boy and Sime, two of our really solid top players. So we'll get to see some additional commentary from them, probably better insight than I have. All right, so we see the continuous threat here from black. Black's position I like better than white's right now, which I mean, it's tough to do that early in tack. All right, so we see white's capstone come down. It's got two opportunities for capture here and here. So no matter what, this capstone is not going to be isolated. Great capstone placement from white. Black doesn't really have a great spot to place his capstone yet, so he's probably waiting that out, trying to see where he can place it. We see white continuing to build for this horizontal threat here. That's where he's going. He can come down with the capstone. He can come down with the flat. He can... Okay, all right. So this is a good spot for the capstone. Not great because I don't like putting him against the edges of the board, but he can come up and disrupt this vertical line. He can also disrupt the horizontal line with that same move. So basically, he placed it there specifically to capture on D5. That was a good play. I probably would not have played there because I wouldn't have thought about that. But it was a good move. It's a good move. And they are going quickly. Man, they are playing fast. Like, I play quickly as a general rule, but these guys are going lightning right now. All right, so we see white continuing to build down here, and that helps his vertical and horizontal threat. Ooh, we see a tack threat from black already. Throwing this capstone over to the left onto B5 completes this road. Now, that's hard to see. That's not an easy to see threat. So fwwwwwib, if he continues to play at this speed, might miss this first tack threat, and he doesn't. Okay, so he's safe here. Now we knew that capstone was going to come up to B4 anyway, just because he kind of placed it there in order to build along that horizontal threat, and also maybe to continue on this vertical one. If he wants to come along here, place it E1, C6, and then throw that over. Now black can just continue on and make threats. Placing there at D6 or at C6 would have worked as well. But he can come over here, capture, and complete that. Or, you know, do a bunch of different things. But yeah, he's making the tack threat again. White goes ahead and stops it. So we've got, he wants to go from E1 probably, or maybe even F2, or even F3. F3 would probably be better because he gets this to come across to go for that horizontal threat. So I'm not quite sure what we're gonna see here from black. B4 might be good. Actually, no, because then we'll just see some additional play here or here. This is a tough one. I like white's position now. At the beginning, I was saying I really liked black's position, and he did pretty well, but Black made his threats. They were cut off. Now he doesn't have any immediate momentum to really make another attack threat. I mean, he could play here, go e4 to d4, but that would just be a momentary threat. It wouldn't be actually building for something long term. It might even hurt him in the long term. So we're probably going to see, yeah, we're going to see a placement here. It's an interesting play. I don't know what this is building for. I'm not sure what the purpose of this is. Maybe it's to eventually cut off any vertical threat that goes along this path. I'm not sure about that though. Okay, and then white playing at b4. So we're seeing this. We have attack threat here, playing at f3 or f2. Black comes down, interrupts that, but we'll see another attack threat here, placing at d5. And that's probably why he placed this at f5, so he could come over. Yep, there it is. But, ooh, and now he's still building towards that vertical threat. This is great play, because he was thinking several moves ahead when he placed there at f5, because he knew exactly what fwib was going to do. He knew fwib was going to place here, he knew how he was going to respond, and then he knew how fwib was going to respond to that response. This is why he's at the top of the rankings and I'm not. All right, so the wall comes down to interrupt this black threat that's developing here. That's smart. So he's got the wall here he can capture over or he can capture down. Either way, he gets rid of this sort of threat, and if he captures down, he can take that prisoner, which is going to be super helpful in determining flat count, because you don't want to be throwing walls around because it'll damage your flat count. But if you can guarantee you're going to capture over and free some prisoners, it kind of mitigates that damage that you had. All right, black captures over, makes attack threat. White captures over with the wall, and then black walls to stop this from really hurting him. But I mean, white can still capture down with the wall, but he can't go anywhere with it. Now the crush is pinned, like we're seeing in the chat here. He can't crush because it'll leave this open for play and it'll just be a win. Now what's interesting here is he could have left behind a black flat to secure his passage back up to d6 in case Nohat decides to wall here. I mean, it would potentially be counterproductive if he were to wall there. Okay, let's see what's he doing with f4. He might just decide, okay, I'm going to go for a horizontal threat now and start building here at b2 and a2, and then that'll be connected with this flat coming over. And it could be his play here. White coming across, yeah, and so he can come across and capture and then have that road threat again. So this is a really strong position for white. I know it looks like black has a lot of options here as well with a lot of center control, but white just has so much going on because white has this whole area open to come up for vertical, and the capstone is essentially locking that position in. Black now deciding, hey, I'm going to go for this horizontal threat here. White taking it out. White's probably going to play here, potentially. Or they could play off to this side and disrupt things. Oh, here we go. Here's where a lot of time should probably be taken by both of these players. So we could see up, we could see down, we could see other things too that I'm not seeing. So the rabbit boy is saying c3 to the right to make that threat. Okay, so There is attack threat now. Attack threat is on. So let's see how white responds to this. Now he could respond this way by coming down here with his capstone and immediately making a threat in addition to blocking that threat. Now it wouldn't be super strong because he's got this here to cut off the anchor point. So that wouldn't do a ton. And he's got the capstone to cut off that anchor point. So there's a lot that can be done here, but this is solid. Okay, so the capstone does come down. So he's cutting off that threat from black and making his own. And we see the capstone come down. Now I wonder if we're going to see any play from this wall here, because this wall could come down. And potentially throw over to cut off these two anchor points. And then we'll probably see black play down here. Maybe reinforce some positioning over here. But yeah, the wall stack down looks to be the good move here. If he leaves a white flat there, probably best, and then he can throw a white flat and the wall over, and then leave this here so he can continue on maybe this thread. And I imagine fwwwwwibib is looking at that, trying to think, okay, what is black going to do after I make those moves, after I move this down? Because we know that if he moves that down, black cannot crush that wall, because it would leave him open for a win. So it is the immediate best move. Whether or not it's the best move for later on in the game, we don't know. Well, I don't know. You guys might know. Maybe fwwwwwib knows. Maybe Nohat knows. So I could also see, potentially like a little bit of a gambit here to move e2 over. It wouldn't really do anything specifically right then, but he could throw that over and it would stop the threat, the black threat, and then he could build up here. And then this throwing over would complete a road. Now, it might not be easy to see. He might be able to basically trick Nohat with that, make it so he doesn't see that threat. But there is a lot of time on the board for both players at this moment, so I don't think that he'd be able to basically trick him into that. Okay, Sim in the chat saying that d4, placing at d4 would be good because then he can move the wall down after that and then have more flats on top. Not sure about that. That works to block, but then we'd probably see e1. And we see Rabbit Boy talking about my e2 to the left play. Yes, that would be a play. Not a great choice. Okay, so we did see the wall come down, leaving one flat behind, just like I was talking about earlier. How I would have played this. I would have taken a lot less time to play this, which is probably why I would have ended up losing. So fwwwwib did play this eventually, and we'll see him probably throw this across to cut those anchor points, unless black does something that requires another move. So if black plays at e1, for example, or at f1, it will require a different move. It will stop this wall from doing that play and covering up those flats and giving white a very strong flat lead. So we see the flat count right now is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 black flats to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 white flats. So now it's 10-10. We see black move down at e1 to basically stop this from happening right away. Requires some play from white. Now white can place here at f1. He can do some captures with e2 over maybe. He can move his capstone down, which would basically untrap this capstone from being able to cover that. So he's got a lot of options here, some of them better than others. That's what I like about TAC, is that from any point, especially in the mid to late game, you have so many opportunities, so many different moves you can make, that it gets more and more complex as the game goes on. Because especially when you throw stacks into this, because you can spread out a stack in multiple directions in different ways, and so you get so many different. I think the word is permutations there. If it's not, then it's something different. Okay, so we are going to see fwib make some sort of move to cut this horizontal threat. Now we see in the chat here, Simon and Rabbit Boy talking about how they would not move the cap down to stop that. I agree with them. It would unpin that capstone, and I don't want that to happen for fwib. We do see this come up. Okay. So Black would win the capture war here, but at what cost? That's the question. Hmm. Okay, so Nohat's still trying to figure out what he wants to do here. He could place back at B1 and threaten the capture up here, because that would give him, I mean, it would reinforce his capture war on B2, because he could come up, and then if white came down for whatever reason, he could go here. If he did capture up here, white would probably have to come down with this flat. Okay, so he does place the flat there at B1. Now white has to do something to put momentum back in his court. So he could place here at E6 or at D6. And that would basically say, okay, I know that you're trying to build for this so you can capture up and then make another attack threat, but I've got attack threat first. So you have to respond to this before you can respond to that. So he can move momentum back in his court, but it'd be momentary because I'm assuming a wall here would basically stop all of that. Now, if he moves this wall, that's where you're going to see some trouble because he can throw these over. Okay, so the wall does go up. Black's not taking any chances here. He's saying, all right, I saw what you're trying to do here. I'm not going to let it happen. So we might see the wall come across. We might see some additional play down here, maybe at C1, maybe at A1. We might even see it A3. Because this is going to be a contested spot. This flat, for example, it's got a black prisoner underneath. And so if black comes up, he's got two blacks there, which means, sure, he's got this threat, but if the white cuts off this threat anywhere else besides this spot, he can throw up and disrupt this whole area for white. Okay, so we do see a white wall come down at A3, ready to come down and capture at A2 to liberate that prisoner. Okay. I'm liking this. So that wall basically makes it so capturing here isn't the best option. Capturing over, that works. So now white is practically forced to come down here. Otherwise, he gets his whole area disrupted and he loses that flat advantage. I think he might already have lost it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10, 10. White comes over with the wall. Very, very unusual play, but the best play, I think, in this moment because it stops this from going up and also allows for the capture down and the liberation of these prisoners. That was a brilliant play, not one that you see too often. You don't often see a wall go on top of its own friendly flat piece. But it basically makes this a hard wall, kind of like a hard capstone. I'm not sure that anyone has ever used that term before, but I'm using it now. The hard wall comes over here and is ready for that capture down. Now, Now my mic died, but it's back. So we'll see Black come up with something. He's probably thinking, how can I make sure that White does not get these prisoners back? Because he really wants to make sure of that. Maybe he'll move 3, 3b2 to the left over to a2, continue that attack threat here, and then keep these prisoners from being immediately captured. Because that gives him that tack, gives him momentum, but also doesn't give away all these prisoners to this wall, which is really what fwww wants right now. He wants these because he can come over, cover up, he can use them for a tack threat, he can try to set up attenuate maybe, but he really wants these captives so he can destroy Black's flat count. Okay, so we did see that. So Black is desperately trying to recover these flats. So if he comes over with the wall, so if he comes down just with the wall, he threatens this. And he also stops this. I'm trying to see if there's any negative to that. I don't think there is. Because Black can't make another threat right here. Maybe because placing at C1 or at A1 wouldn't really give him an immediate attack threat that would need to be responded to. So I think that he's kind of stuck, and no matter what, White is going to take this. But what he can do, does that help? No, it doesn't help. Oh, it does help. So if he places at A1 here, if he places at A1, then White will have to bring over this black flat to capture these. Because before I was thinking he might want to leave this black flat here so he can have a little bit more opportunity, so he knows that Black won't place a wall here. And so if he places at A1, then Black can't pen this in with another wall. But he placed it C1 instead. Okay. Curious about that move. So if he does do that again, comes over with just the wall. So yeah, I feel like 1b2 to the left is still viable here. A1 would have eliminated that move, but now fwww has to think about two potential moves. Moving over with just the flat, with just the wall, or moving over with the flat as well. Okay, so we moved over with the flat as well. We might see a wall here from Black. Be 3 walls on the board from him, which would hurt his flat count, but not as much as throwing these pieces over would hurt his flat count. That's for sure. Yeah, so he does put a wall here. That's why I was saying that I really liked Black placing an A1 here to eliminate that move, but I guess he thinks that this is a little bit better for him anyway. So we're seeing White place here. We might even see another wall here at A3 because he wants to move that up to continue this threat here. Oh man, this is going to be a tough one. Because if Black comes over and captures here, you're going to see him come down with this wall and throw that over. So this wall either has to move or he has to place another one. So this is a tough one. I see a wall here maybe. And that's a lot of walls to have on the board. I mean, Nohat uses walls very well. And like I'd say much better than almost anybody else, if not everybody else. So it's a tough one to call here. And we do see that their timers are running down lower. NohatCoder just over 4 minutes left, 6 minutes left for fwww. Okay, so we did see the wall here at A3. It was a move of desperation, is what that was. We see in the chat here, Nohat or Rabbit Boy and Sime both talking about Black's chances, and they don't know what black can do here that can really give him the win. They can really push for a road. And they are talking about Comey, which is an alternate rule set where some folks say that uh, you can add basically flat count to black's side, like 2 or maybe even 3, depending on what tournament it is, in order to sort of even up the games between white and black. But that is not what we're doing here today. All right, so we see f3 placed. f3 got placed, which is not a attack threat, but it could be building towards one. And it's also, more importantly, just to get flats on the board. So we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So white is at a big advantage here for flats. He's going to want to keep that. Okay, I like that move. Because if white comes up here, black can now move his capstone over and then have one of his own flats underneath that capstone stack, which would give him a little bit more mobility. So white's probably thinking of a different play that he can do that still leaves him viable. But like, black doesn't have any road options at this point. So white doesn't need to play anything fancy. He just needs to keep placing flats. Yeah, so fwib basically just needs to keep placing flats and he'll win this. Because there's really no opportunity for black to make a road anywhere. So we can just keep placing flats and push for a board fill, and then take the win that way. Now it is easy when you look at the different options there. Okay, let's see, d4 cuts off that opportunity for a threat, sure, but it doesn't really help black too much in the long run. So you can just keep placing flats, maybe here at c4 or even up here at c6, and just keep placing those flats. And that's the way to win here for a guarantee, basically. But maybe fwib wants to try to win with a road, and maybe he wants to go fancy. Maybe he wants to make this drawn out. I'm not sure. Now, it's easy to see with the conversation off to the side about Comey and things like that, that maybe it's because white had this advantage. But let's not forget that at the very beginning, black had a much better position. He had the early momentum, and he was able to build a lot more threats. And white had to respond. White made some great moves, took the momentum back, and was able to continue on from there. And so it's not as black and white as as white is better than black. That was accidental. It's not as black and white as that, because at this stage in the game with this strong of a player, you can overcome those obstacles. Okay, so we see black coming along over here. Maybe trying to cut off these threats with this place at f2. Maybe he's trying to still build along for his road threat horizontally. Going to capture over with b1 at some point. Not quite sure. But fwib just needs to keep placing. And he's got this. Now, if he wants to go fancy with it, he can. But at this point, if I'm against NohatCoder, I'm going to be going for the safe route, which is to keep placing, which is what he did. He ends up placing at c6, a relatively safe placing position, because if he moves that wall to capture c6, he's toast. If he moves the wall down to capture d5, he's toast, because he's got that road there. So he's got ample opportunity to just throw these flats down, work on this board fill, only 3 spaces left. Black can't really place too many more flats, or he's going to get toasted by the board fill. So we're seeing this one come out on top for him. Now, it's interesting in the standings right now, NohatCoder, because he did not win one of his games, maybe 2 of his games, he is behind fwib in the overall tournament standings at this point. So this is, I think, the first game of round 2, and fwwwwwibib came in starting at 16 points, if I'm not mistaken, and Nohat came in at 14 points. And so it's going to be really difficult for Nohat to come back from this point and win the tournament overall. Okay, so we do see a placement at F1. He's saying, all right, I know you can do all these different things to win right now, to work for this win, but I'm going to keep building for this, and maybe hopefully you miss when I go over here to B1, because I don't really have any other options. I'm pretty sure that's what Nohat is going for here. And we see off to the side, Rabbit Boy really wants to see a cool anyway, but probably going to be that board fill. That's my guess, at least. And fwwwwwib might be looking for it. He might be looking for a tenuay. He might be looking to make sure that if he places a flat somewhere, he doesn't accidentally lose. He wants to make sure he's got the time on his clock. All right, so and we see a placement at F5. So up here, it doesn't really do anything. It sort of blocks in this this wall a little bit, but it doesn't do anything more than just fill that board. And so black right now is unable to place a piece because he will lose to a board fill. And maybe fwwwwib was just counting the pieces, double checking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So now it's 12 to 14. We knew that was going to happen. Wall comes down. Now black is essentially screwed from this point. He's got no options. He's going to get his flats covered. He's going to get that board moved to being a fill. He doesn't have anything he can do. He can move that wall down. That's what he can do. Does he want to spread across here? Because he's moving away from that board fill now that we've got 3 open spaces here. They are both running low on flats, so he moves it over 1. Does not continue the spread. All right, we see B2 minus. We see that wall come down. Yeah, that's what I was seeing. I was seeing just a placement there at B2. I think black knows that he has this lost. And he could hope for some sort of mistake from fwwwwib, but I'm not sure we're seeing it. Maybe he's just going to keep moving around, keep doing things, prevent this board fill, draw this out, and hope that he can come back and win in game 2. Maybe exhaust his opponent, his mental capacities here. fwwwwib also halfway through this game asked the Discord chat, remind me, are we playing with Comey here? He wanted to make sure that he was counting the flats correctly. Okay, so we see more desperation attempts from black, placing here at A2 so he can move up and hopefully make that road threat by moving this wall. I don't think that's going to happen for you, Nohat, but I mean, it was a well-played game, but it just got to that point where there's nothing really more that you can do to prevent this win from Nohat, from fwwwwib, sorry. Another placement, and we see board fill here at A1 because E5 was placed, so black can just sort of surrender and give him the board fill, or he can continue to draw this out, maybe play up with this wall. Because I don't think that white can make a win here. No, he can't. Will he go for a win? That's a question, because if he places, Okay, so he's placing. He's just going to keep placing. Not going to bother capturing, just going to keep placing. Fill that board, run out of flats. He's got 2 left. There's only so long he can delay this game. Nohat, that is. It was a really good game, but it got to a point where he just had that momentum and he had the flat count at a certain point in the game with enough walls on the board, with the right board positioning, you just know that you're going to win as long as you keep placing. Because we saw that at earlier on, maybe 15 moves ago, maybe 10 moves ago, I'm not quite sure how many, that there was just a point where black just did not have any options to make a road that couldn't be immediately thwarted by white. And white was up by 2, maybe 3 flats. So all white had to do was just keep placing flats all across the board, and that was just going to be a guaranteed victory. And he recognized that position. He recognized the point of the game where he could start to do that, and he just went for it. He took his time on a few moves to make sure he wasn't giving up a win accidentally, which is very important. Got to go through that checklist in your mind every time. Can I win here? Can my opponent win here? And Nohat threw in the towel, eventually filled the board, gave the win to white for flats. It was a good game. Excellent play from both players. Nohat was just on the point of exhausting his time also. It was a great game from some of our top players here playing. Now we'll see. Probably in a couple minutes, they're probably going to take a little bit of a break so they can get their brains a little bit of a rest, because I'm sure that was some high concentration in order to get to this point. A little bit of a yin yang. So they're probably going to take a little bit of break before they start game 2. So I'm going to take a little bit of a break before we start game 2. And we will come back with some more action. But let's see at what point. I think it was up here. So yeah, it was about, I think it was right about here where we realized, or I realized, that there was really nothing black could do. And it could have been a little bit earlier. Yeah, at this point, yeah, he was toast. Right around turn 30 was when we knew that white was just going to win with more and more flats on the board. So drew it out for an extra 13 moves or 12 moves until the game was won. And they played so fast in the beginning, and they played so well. I mean, if we see here at the beginning, we'll move through fairly quickly. These moves, and like I said, black's in a great spot here. White's in a good spot, but black's in a great spot. We come right here. Black, I'd say, has the advantage. So it's not just strictly this white wins nonsense. That is the case sometimes, but I think at this top level of play, that's not going to be the case all the time, because you will see some great plays in order to switch this back in your favor. Like I said, right here, black has the advantage. Black ends up having momentum here. He's got the tack threats. He makes the first threats. He forces these big captures from white. Then it starts to change. It starts to shift a little bit. We see black throwing out more and more walls. We see these capture points. We see this start to occur, and this is only around turn 19 or so. And we have seen a lot of these games in this tournament end before this point at turn 19. We've seen a lot of games end at maybe 18, 17, 16 turns. Just the really quick ones, the maybe not the top players like fwwwwwibib and Nohat. But we have seen those people missing these tack threats, missing some sort of play. And so we're not seeing that from these guys, but we are seeing some great play develop. And so it's definitely not one for white at this point. Not for another 10 moves or 13 moves maybe. And so we see a lot of this development occur. We see these tack threats keep developing from black, where he keeps forcing these moves from white. White moving his capstone down, which I thought was a risky play, but ended up being fantastic. It ended up being sort of the linchpin to his offense and defense, keeping this capstone basically pinned the whole time. This wall here can't. My mic died again. The wall here can't keep capturing and recapturing and smashing walls. It was great play all the way through, and we just see a masterful execution of tech, strategy, and tactics, and that's the turning point where we go on to just fill the board. And I'm surprised that Nohat held out as long as he did, but he recognized the futility and eventually ended the game. Didn't want to use up his brain power, I guess. So I do see that the Seek is up, ready to start for game 2. This time with NohatCoder as white and fwwwwwibib as black. This will be a fun game, I'd say. Nohat is very dominant in both colors, in both positions on the board. And I think we'll see some solid play from both players again. I think it would be foolish to expect poor play from these, even after such a long match. 40 minutes was the first game about. So we'll see how well they do here. We see the chat rabbit already saying this should be a different game now that we see Nohat as white. Not quite so sure about that, but we'll see. All right, we see a very different opening this time. Very, very different. Okay. Alternate opening. No adjacent corners, no opposite corners. We see these pieces buddy-buddy. And then the mirrored play in the center. This is a great spot for white. I really like this. I know that black was probably placing this here to mess with him. But I like this position. Oh, and then black comes in with that early capstone saying, no, I got this. Cutting off that threat here to the side. I'm saying probably a b4 here because he knows he's eventually going to capture over to c5. So playing at b4 allows it so it's not going to be immediately reset on that threat. Now white's saying, you know what? I'm giving up on this vertical threat because I know you're going to stop it. I'm going to start making all the action occur down here on 1 and 2, very far away from your capstone. Let's focus all of our attentions right here now that we've got your capstone up top. Okay, and then a wall comes down. Okay. Not pulling any punches. Black really wants to make sure that white does not get ahead to an early lead and then isolate that capstone. Capstone comes down from white up top. Unexpected. Very unexpected. I was going to assume that he was going to focus his attentions down here away from the capstone of black. Now we see black playing a little aggressive, coming over, making sure that white doesn't get this hard capstone here. Okay, white continuing to build up this vertical threat. Does not care about this wall, does not care about this capstone, saying, I'm going to keep building this position and I'll eventually maintain this momentum as long as you can't build any threats. Black building along both sides so we can cut off from multiple angles. We might see an F3 come over here at some point. We see the wall come out. Goes over for the capture onto C2. White continuing to place the flats. Nohat was one of the first people to write a strategy guide for TAC back in 2016, 4 years ago. And he wrote one of the biggest things that stood out to me, this is honestly, reading that strategy guide took me from being a less than mediocre player to being an above average player. And that was one of the things was placing flats, prioritizing the flat count basically above all else. Because a lot of these top games, as we've seen just last game, go to the flats. They don't end up in a row, they don't end up in tenuate, they end up in a flat count. So prioritizing this flat count, prioritizing that the whole game, that's the way you need to win. Yes, NoHat did lose by flat count last game, but it was just solid play from both players. So we are seeing some moves here going horizontal. And then we see these guys saying horizontal makes no sense. I'm not sure about that. I think it makes sense for black. Making sense for white, not so much. But we do see the capstone come down and say, I'm done with your little horizontal threat here. Black building across saying, I'm done with your vertical threat. Just doesn't want that to happen. Now we are seeing some more moves here. I might see an F5. I kind of like F5 here to kind of come over maybe block off here at E6. But we see that wall come over even more. I feel like black's doing a great job at defending these threats from white. White's doing a great job of keeping the pressure on, of continuing to place these flats, continuing to maintain this momentum and keep black from building too strong of a position, forcing this wall to come over and just suck up pieces, but also to give himself the opportunity to capture a stack potentially, because he could have smashed on that turn, but he didn't because it wasn't a really great spot to do it. So instead, the wall comes over. We might see this flat come over here to capture onto D3 to give this sort of a dual approach to this capstone. Because that would be attack threat here, coming over across. And it would only be defended by this wall moving or this flat moving. This flat going up to D3, to D6, sorry. So I think fwwwwwibib really wants to make sure he does not move this stack over here onto D2. Does not want that to happen. He might think about moving B3 over to C3 to keep this from moving over. Because that dual pronged threat. Okay, so he moves the capstone instead. Good play. Keeps his capstone available to block off this vertical threat. I think we might see white start to build for horizontal here to maybe cut off. But at the same time, black now has this going. So you might want to just go ahead and preemptively move that across. If he moves that across, he can come down with his capstone, block off that even more, and maintain that threat, block off this area for black. So I see a lot of opportunities for white. Black has some minor options, but only if white basically plays this wrong. So white's done a great job of keeping black defensive here, and that's what he's doing. So black's kind of stuck. He made this early wall, he made those early captures, and that, I think, was a bit of a mistake. That was a bit of a goof on his part. So now we see some threads for attack threats. So wall comes out again. Wow. Black's being very defensive with these walls. I don't think that these walls are utilized as well as the walls that NoHat used in the last game. They were a little bit more strategic. And these seem a little bit more out of desperation. We are seeing what the chat expected. This is a very different game than last game. We're seeing pretty dominant play from white throughout. We're not seeing that early lead from black. We're not seeing a back and forth too much. We're seeing mostly white take control. Now white knows he can't go down. He can't build that up. He can't continue on with those threats for vertical because those two walls there are blocking both of his pillars for anchor points. What he needs to do is shut down black's ability to go for a horizontal threat and a vertical threat at the same time, and probably build up something horizontally here. He wants this to occur for him. How he can make that happen, that's hard, because black does have the advantage for this area, this side of the board, because this capstone is on this side of the board. And he's in a position where recapture wars aren't going to be too great for white. Black is here up against the side. We see this horizontal threat still developing for black. White building across as well for their horizontal threat. So they're both 2 moves away from a win at this point. So 1 move away from tack for both players. It's interesting how I did expect white to basically take the whole game down below at the beginning. Once black had this flat up here and he started building down low, I expected the whole game to occur down here, but now we're seeing this is basically empty and it's all happening up top. Now black has a lot of options here. He can even go for vertical, playing at B2, just like Rabbit Boy suggested. And again, I do want to point out that this text in the green is not seen by the players. I just want to point that out. I would love to be able to see what the players are saying to each other, if they are talking to each other at all. I'm sure they were last game near the end with that board fill coming up. But we do see here the tack threat from white, capturing up, making that threat here viable. So if black comes down and captures, and white recaptures here, we'd probably see a wall here or here from black. But regardless, black needs to capture. He needs to capture somewhere. Here, here. Those would be good spots. That's the best spot, I think. It's going to get recaptured, and then we're going to see where black wants to place that wall. Because I feel like white doesn't really have any other option besides recapturing here. So black can place a wall here or here. Where does he want it? That's the question. If he places it here, he stops this from coming down and cutting off this anchor point, which is probably the better move. If he placed it here, he would stop it from coming across and building towards that road again. Yeah, that stack here just didn't really work. That recapture war. Now he can move over this whole stack potentially to B5, and I kind of like that move. It keeps it from being covered by this wall. It basically keeps this wall here away from the action. It would have to cover his own piece, which we did see fwwwwwibib do last game, and it worked brilliantly. So that may be something that could work here as well. So if he moves this whole stack over, we won't see an immediate recapture because that'll just get captured again. We might see that wall come over again. And I feel like that would be good. Moving up to A6, that's a good move. That might work out for him. It's not an immediate threat, of course, and it doesn't threaten this spot here on D5. But I think that would be a good move. Because moving over to the side, sure, it keeps him in play for a recapture war, but it does give this wall the opportunity to come over and then recapture those prisoners. Whoa, he walls himself. That was unexpected. That cuts off his own threat. Okay. Interesting play here from NohatCoder. Now, NohatCoder, as I said before, plays walls better than pretty much anybody. I might have to reassess my my thoughts on that, or I'm I might be proving myself right here, depending on how this plays out. Okay, and then a flat comes down. I would have expected a wall to come there. Really confused. Very confused about this play. Don't know what's going on. Rabbit Boy's even saying the same thing as I am. He's saying, was that a misclick? I don't get it. I don't get it either, but this is interesting. So, what's white going to do here? I mean, black on the next turn can make attack threat by placing a B1. Really, that wall placement was either so brilliant that no one is seeing how brilliant it is. By no one, I mean nobody in the chat and me, or it was just not a great play. I'm not sure about that. Very confused. All right, we saw A6 come out. What is Nohat going to do here to prevent that eventual threat, vertical threat there? Because if he places here at B1, he can move this down and then down again, and that connects here. That would be a 4A5 minus 2 minus 1, 2, or 2, minus 2, 2. Why just play it up? I guess he's expecting for this to get played and then to come over with B6. If B6 comes over and he moves up, then white takes over that captive. Maybe that's what he was going for with that wall? I'm not sure. Another wall comes out. And I guess if black were to capture up here with A3 and the wall were to come over, that would just stop everything. That would stop this whole vertical threat from happening. And he would lock in this stack. Black saying, I see what you're trying to do here. I'm going to abandon that, and I'm going to move over here for this horizontal threat. Or make another vertical threat here. All right. We're at turn 30. This was the turning point of last game. Let's see what the flat count is here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so they're basically even on flats because black has yet to play here. Yeah, 13 to 12, and then if black plays another flat here, then he is even on flats. White plays one flat first, so that's he gets the slight flat advantage. So he's basically +1. Very interesting. And it looks like Nohat might be playing for flats at this point. He's placing. He's forcing these moves from fwib, knowing that if he continues to place, he can force a win because he's got pretty solid positioning over here. He's surrounding all of these pieces of black and all of his own pieces. He has these recapture wars basically locked in for himself. Okay, black's probably moving for a little desperation play here by moving that wall down. Yeah, I think we're seeing what we saw last game. Right around turn 30, we see this flat count run. And this time, it's NohatCoder who's got this flat count advantage. And he's running with it. We see that wall come over to the side and cut off all threats, all avenues for A and B on that vertical side. Playing at b5 here, like Rabbit Boy suggests, might be good in the long run. We do see that Nohat only has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flats left. So he wants to probably come over here and threaten that vertical with e6. Hmm. Yeah, I think we're seeing Nohat assess the situation here and say, okay, want to see what fwib is trying to do here. Want to make sure that I win all of these exchanges and that he can't sneak a Tinuay out on me. And then I'm going to keep playing flats to keep this advantage, keep my home court. So we see black play there. Okay, interesting. I'm not sure where he's going with this. He might just be playing flats at this point. 1, 2, 3. Oh man, 1, 2, 3, 4, 12. Yeah, 12 to 13 still. White in the lead. Yeah, I'm not seeing a way out of this for fwib. I'm seeing a very similar situation as last game. We saw it got to a certain point in the game, around turn 30, know how to assess the situation. All right, nobody's really got too many strong options here that we can't both cut off. I'm just going to keep placing. And then we see Manatee striking up. It always amazes me how few captures Nohat has to make. Yes, absolutely. Just like in his guide, he says, place the flats. And you do see that. You don't see any captives underneath the flats of white, which is amazing. You see them underneath walls and you see them underneath capstones. That's all. I mean, you don't see any for black either. Yeah, this I feel like again around turn 30, maybe 28, 29, we saw this assessment of the board come out where Nohat basically said, "Okay, I've got this on flats. I'm going to go for it." Now, fwib is going to have to make some desperation plays right now. Nohat has 3 flats left. There's 2 spots left on the board. He needs to make some captures to try and force a road. If he can't force a road, he's toast. Maybe he wants to go d5 down, make that horizontal threat. Maybe he wants to come across, come over, come over. Like he's got a lot of opportunities here. One capture gives him a lot of different attack threats. And he's got multiple captures to go here, but I think he loses those. And you need to stop talking in the main chat, Pluto the Brave. Okay, so hopefully he got that message. All right. Let's see, Fwib here. After that, C2, yeah, it's tough. I mean, he's got multiple captures here that give him attack threat, but none of them are really great. There's one of them. Comes over. If that recaptures, he wins that war. But if that comes over, he doesn't win that war. Yeah, I don't think Fwib has an out here. Yeah, so he comes over. There's nothing he can do at that point. White basically has this in the bag. Fwib is left with no options. I mean, he can come up here maybe with F3 to F4 and hope that Nohat doesn't see that move, throwing the flat down to D4. But I think that's basically all he's got. Yeah, so he's going for that. He's going for desperation move for a Hail Mary. Trying to throw that piece down, make that threat. Now, if Nohat sees it, there's nothing he can do here. He just needs to capture over probably with C6. Or go up. That also works. What's he going to do? He's got no options here. Wib taking his time to think. I don't think this is working. We see Syme saying he'd do for C3 plus, which is moving this whole capstone stack up here to C4. Sure, that's his really only move here. It gives him attack threat, and it changes the board up a bit, makes it so White has to make some more captures. But I am probably just moving those walls up here would do it for him. I do think that Nohat has the win here, and there's nothing that Fwib can do to stop it, except hope that Nohat makes a mistake. He's got to keep putting pressure on, keep making threats, and hope Nohat misses them. Yeah, if we've taken his time here, we've got 3 minutes on the clock for him, 7 minutes on the clock for NohatCoder. And we are seeing a game pretty similar to last one. Right around turn 30, it just became a flat war. We got 2 walls on the board for white, 3 walls on the board for black. I think those early walls for fwib really hurt him, and they didn't help as much as he was hoping. I think they put him back on flats, and they forced certain plays from Nohat. Mainly, they forced him to shift his attention from making these road threats into just doing flats and pushing that flat count advantage this whole game. And if I can think of one person in the whole TAC community that is excellent at keeping track of flats, it's NohatCoder. That's what he thinks about pretty much every turn, according to him. He thinks about, okay, what is my flat count? How does this move affect my flat standing? And so he is the one to talk to when you're looking at flat counts. So I think that this was the wrong play to make against Nohat in that case. But we are probably going to see that capstone stack move up, and then we'll see what white does in response to that, because there's a number of different responses that white can make to that move. I'm going to guess that it's going to be this capstone, or this wall coming down. Probably won't be the capstone coming over. Um, uh, yeah, e5. I'm not sure what the point of that was. I think maybe he might have just given up. He might have decided this is it for me, and he's just going to keep placing and run the flats out. We got 1, 2, 3, 1. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So now white's up 13 to 12, as he has been for a while now. Yeah, I think this is another one where the game is over, unless fwib can see something really sneaky that I can't. Okay, there's a tech threat that I did not see coming. All right, what's he doing here? So this capstone coming over to smash this wall is a tag threat. It can be easily stopped by moving this up or this down. What can he do in response to that that maybe helps him? Nohat's probably thinking the same thing. He's saying, okay, I didn't see him doing that move. Now that he's done it, what is he hoping to achieve after I've moved this piece somewhere? Okay, we instead see that stack come over, thrown over, and captured. And that's actually a great move because it improves his flat count, stops this anchor point, and starts developing a road even for white. Now, what can black do? Black can move his stack down here. What else can he do? That's a good question. fwib's also running out of time. He's got 25 seconds left on the clock. Nohat's got 6.5 minutes. Right, boy, I said C5 minus. I think he meant the full stack, like 4 C5 minus. Because C5 minus would have been the win going across. But yeah, so here's another attack threat from black coming across here. We'll probably see the wall move at some point. If the wall comes down, him smashing it wouldn't give white the win, but I don't think it would also be very strong. It would only give him an extra 2. I mean, it might be, yeah, that would be attack threat. Um, but I think that we're going to see this wall come down all the way to B3. I think that's what we'll see instead. Because if he plans on crushing A4, Nohat just needs to move this all the way down to B3, throw it. It would still stop that vertical threat, or still stop this horizontal threat from happening. Sure, he can move this afterwards. After he moves that, yeah, that would work. But I mean, this is attack threat. So fwib is putting on the pressure. He's only got 24 seconds left on the clock. Nohat has plenty of time to think about this. fwib's got to be thinking about this really hard. I sometimes when I'm playing a really strong match, what I'll do is I'll have another window open with PTN Ninja, which is a visualization tool to view games, sort of like Playtac, but with a different UI. And it's not for online play, just for sort of playing out moves, maybe doing puzzles. Okay, so we see this white come down capture. So that kind of screws it up, goes across. Now we're going to see white start placing flats, because if he places a flat, he wins. I think. Maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I think he would win. Unless he places a flat here at F5, in which case you would you might see it change. Okay, but anyway, I play a PTN Ninja in the opposite screen, and I'll say, okay, so I'm at this position. If I do this and he does this and I do this and he does this, and I play out several moves ahead for different options to sort of play out how I would think it. It's easier for me to visualize than doing it all in my head, and that way I can see the board better. And so I'll do that, and then I'll finally make my play. Okay, so we see a D6 play from here, which is a attack threat, and also placing a flat, and it's 2-prong. So he wins here at F3, and he wins here at E6. And the only way to stop it is to throw that capstone up. And if he throws that capstone up, last flat gets played, and that's the game. White wins by having more flats. That was a close game. It right around turn 30, just like last game. Around turn 30, and it ended at turn 42, just like last game. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 to 12 flats. Pretty solid play. It was a great little tack thread at the end from white. And I mean, if he just had one more flat, that would have been thrown across for a win. But Nohat had run out of flats here, and that ended the game. Really fun games to watch. Really excellent to see these top players show us how it's done, basically. And we did see that both games were played about 40 minutes, which is what we expect from these top games. And it's interesting to see with this lower time control, with the 10 minutes, with the 15-second increment, that we still had about a 40-minute game going on. Typically, with the higher time controls, we'll see anywhere between 40 minutes and an hour for these top-tier games between these top players. NohatCoder on the unofficial Playtech ranking ranked the number 1 player, or no, number 2 player, I think, right now. And then fwib, I think, ranked number 6. So they're at the top. And so, yeah, these guys know what they are doing, and they showed us. So hopefully I'll be able to stream some more games this tournament. This does put fwib in the lead, I'm pretty sure. They did go 1-1, so they each get 1 point, I think, for that. So fwib goes up to 17 points, whereas Nohat is now at 15 points in the tournament. So if they each win all of the rest of their games, I think fwib takes the tournament. But we'll see. Uh, it's still anyone's game at this point because anything can happen. And great matches. Great to see a lot of community engagement off to the side. And great to be able to record these. And thanks everybody for tuning in, and hopefully we'll catch you on the next one.